Griffin is playing a handful that we haven't seen in a ton of decks previously. Cards like Branded in White that maybe we'll be able to see featured in this match.
Yeah, it'd be exciting to see. Fusion Deployment is another card that's rose in popularity since the release. So Blazing Cartasia came out in Darkwing Blast, but in Photon Hypernova, her fusion form, Gwyvangolin, the Dusk Dragon, it lists Blazing Cartasia as a fusion material. So now you can use Fusion Deployment to special summon that Blazing Cartasia from your deck to the field. And since it has that quick effect of fusion summon, if you normal summon a Aluber, your opponent tries to use infinite impermanence to stop that Aluber, you could chain the Blazing Cartasia to fuse the Aluber off the field, so it'll still resolve. So you have a lot more reach than the deck used to have, because Ash Blossom on the Branded Fusion is still really, really powerful. So you want to have a layer your other ways to get fusion summons available. I'm a fan of using Fusion Deployment and Fright for Patchwork, because I just want to make sure I'm always able to fusion summon, because there are also some games where you'll have the Blazing Cartasia, but you won't have that Albaz in your graveyard or on the field to be able to special summon it from your hand. But if you have the Fright for Engine, you'll be able to still use it for polymerization. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. Our duelists are finally ready, and it's game number 1 here on the last round of Swiss at the Team YCS in Las Vegas. Now it looks like, can't tell which one of these duelists is going first. Maybe Clifton. Yep, Clifton's just going to lead off with Branded Fusion, and it is good.
Can you imagine showing up game 1 on the bubble, opening up Branded Fusion, no Ash Blossom, that feeling that you'll be able to resolve your full fusion play?
Yeah, now the Branded Fusion, there's a couple different things you can send. You can summon Lubellion, Rinbrum, or Albion. So you could either send a Dark Monster, a Light Monster, or Tri-Brigade McCourier. Going for Rinbrum is a huge deal. If you have something that's able to banish the McCourier from your graveyard, you'll be able to add a card that mentions Fallen Albaz. But when you go for Albion, you get to send down a Light Monster. So if you don't have access to Beastly Lubellion in your hand, you're still able to send it from your deck to the graveyard to summon Albion. So, and then the best part about summoning Albion while sending down the Beastly Lubellion, you can tribute that Albion off the field when you summon back the Beastly Lubellion, so you'll be able to get that in-phase effect to get a branded spell or trap.
This also gives you more resistance against cards like Infinite Impermanence, which used to stop the Lubellion lines. When Branded was first a deck right after the structure deck, a lot of people would send Despia Tragedy plus Fallen of Albaz, and certainly one you had to check for Ash Blossom. But sometimes an Infinite Impermanence there could be a frustrating card when activated in response to Lubellion's effect. So here, this also gives you some additional resistance against those type of cards as well.
When we see Clifton using the Neuron app, Neuron is an awesome app. You want to get that Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron app if you don't have it already. It has the database for all the cards. You can build your decks, test your hands, keep track of your life points. Really an awesome tool to have as a duelist. So you want to make sure you download Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron app now if you do not have it. But Jose is going to activate Infinite Permanence so that Albion won't be able to banish any monsters to conduct a fusion summon, but he'll still be able to tribute that Albion off the field to summon the Beastly Lubellion if he so chooses.
Which is fantastic, because then the Albion itself can add additional follow-up in the end phase. So, as I referred to earlier, Infinite Impermanence certainly stymies Clifton to a certain extent, but this isn't probably a trade that he's that upset with, right? Taking a card like Infinite Impermanence out of a Sky Striker hand can be a pretty big deal, considering he can still generate plenty of card advantage and set up his first turn fairly well, even after the Infinite Impermanence.
Yeah, I would almost say it might be better to hold that Infinite Impermanence, not use it right away on this Albion. Save it for your turn when you know you're going to have to stop something like Mirror Jade, or have negate the Rinbrum, so you don't have to worry about that bouncing the monsters to your hand. But not the case here. You could be worried about banishing maybe a McCourier from his hand so he'd get another search off of it. So now he's going to tribute the Albion to summon Beastly Lubellion, and now he can... All right. It looks like Jose, deep into this tournament, has not run into the branded cards very much, not familiar with the branded Bestial cards, but somehow all the way here in round number 9. Fascinating. Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned, it's a deck that you see quite well represented walking around the field, but some teams may only have one player on a branded deck. And as a result, maybe he's been player A and playing against maybe C.
Oh, that's true. Sometimes it just doesn't line up. The cards have been out for some time now, for sure. So that's
just that there are so many of them.
There are. That's true.
Evolved so much since its first incarnation. Even before the release of Branded Fusion, the deck was actually seeing some degree of success. So it has evolved so many times with each consecutive structure deck or set that has come out.
Yep, and now it looks like he's going to use the effect of Beast of Lubellion to activate Branded Lost from the deck. Branded Lost, kind of like Magical Meltdown for you Alistair players out there. Your opponent can't respond to the summon of a fusion monster, can't negate the effect of a spell of a card that would summon a fusion monster, and when you summon a fusion monster, you're able to add a monster from your deck to your hand that mentions Fallen Albaz. Now he is going to activate Branded White. Lets you fusion summon for a monster as long as you use a dragon as a material. And if you have a Fallen Albaz in your graveyard, you can banish Fallen Albaz from the graveyard.
This is one of the new cards that's actually been around for quite a while, but in some of the early versions of Branded, it wasn't super overwhelmingly popular, but we see it having a resurgence here in popularity.
Yeah, now that they have the tools like Bestial Soronir and Albion, with this combo, you're able to send two Branded Speller Traps from your deck to the graveyard throughout your combo. So now that you're able to send Branded Retribution and Branded White, and then use Branded Retribution to add back that Branded White, it's become a lot more popular, and you get the advantage of being able to use Branded White to banish McCourier if you don't have a Bestial. There's a number of reasons why Branded White has become more popular and definitely been highly used here this weekend.
You know, it's a card that historically reminds me of something like Miracle Fusion, which has often been a really fantastic card because once you dump all these cards into the graveyard, a single spell card that can summon a fusion monster has historically been pretty powerful. So having a branded card that can do something very similar while also synergizing well with the strategy, it makes a lot of sense that we now see it with some degree of popularity.
That's right. And now Lubellion is coming down, going to discard a card from the hand. So he's going to do Chainlink 1 Lubellion, pay the cost. Chainlink 2 Branded Lost. Branded Lost is going to add probably Blazing Cartasia. And then after that resolves, he'll return the Lubellion and Fallen Albaz back to the deck. So yeah, this is the situation where I'm talking about where you can have the Blazing Cartasia, but if you use the Lubellion, it puts the Albaz back into your deck, so you don't have the Albaz to be able to special summon the Cartasia from your hand, which is probably why Clifton is taking a moment to consider his options here. But so he's going to go with Albion instead to get the draw since he can't summon that the Blazing Cartasia.
Yeah, definitely something that's really important. Sometimes when you sequence with the deck like this, you catch yourself in the middle of already committing to the search of Blazing Cartasia, thinking that the Fallen of Albaz is just going to remain in the graveyard, not realizing that you have to resolve the Lubellion. So it's really important to sequence out your turn and kind of think ahead when making those critical decision points.
Certainly, yeah. This is like more reminiscent of the plays the Branded deck does pre-Photon Hypernova. We're not really seeing any of the new cards being able to access here with the hand that Clifton drew, but sometimes just even the old combos are just as good as the newer ones. You usually have to rely on this if you don't open up with something like a Bestial alongside your Branded Fusion.
So it's always going to be
Which in this format is probably less likely, seeing as how players are cutting Bestials in the main deck.
Yeah, I think in every deck but this deck, probably. I mean, you definitely, you're going to have Soronir at least max out, but beyond Soronir, yeah, you probably don't want to max out on too many of the Bestials.
Besides Lubellion, of course.
Yeah, Lubellion, Magomet. So now this is part of that combo where he gets to send two. Soronir will send one, or you can use the Albion to send another one. Albion, you reveal it in your hand. You can send a Branded Speller Trap, and depending on where you send it from, it either summons itself or puts itself to the bottom of the deck, and then you get to draw a card if you send it from the deck. So kind of like an Upstart Goblin, while you're gaining the advantage of whatever Branded Speller Trap you're sending to the graveyard.
It almost feels closer to Pot of Greed when you send a card like Branded Retribution.
Very true. A Pot of Greed you can search from your deck.
Yes.
Very good card.
Exit main. In phase. Okay.
All right, so in phase, he still has that Albion effect. Since it was sent to the graveyard, he's going to be able to set or add a Branded Speller Trap to his hand. Looks like he's eyeing Branded in red. And he does have... Does he have Fallen Albaz in his graveyard? Yeah, he does.
He does.
Decides not to use the Retribution just yet. Might want to add back a different Branded Speller Trap than Branded in white. Branded red will give him a defensive option to be able to add back a Fallen Albaz or a Despia from the graveyard to the hand and then conduct a fusion summon, usually for something along the lines of Guardian Chimera. You usually want to banish like Ad Libitum or something with this card so you can summon back the Mirror Jade to use as a material, but we'll have to see if he has Ad Libitum in the hand. On the other side, though, Jose is leading things off with Terraforming. For Sky Striker Mobilize, Airspace Area 0. I was like, I lost the name of the field spell for a second. No, speaking of Upstart Goblin.
Here we are. The Singleton Upstart Goblin. In this deck, probably the most powerful. Just putting a free spell in the graveyard. He's actually opened both of the Singleton limited cards that freely put spells into the graveyard, allowing him to build up towards that 3 threshold that he's looking for. Both Upstart Goblin and Terraforming.
Really strong spells to have in the Sky Striker deck, certainly.
Wonder if he can follow that up with Reinforcements of the Army.
The trifecta. Looks like someone on Midwest side won game 1.
I'm in game 1. David's currently cracking a Brave cash board.
Clifton giving us the play-by-play across the field.
You won after you got even lead? You won after you got even lead?
So it looks
You're
like Jose
insane.
has a hand full of spell cards, which would make a lot of sense in his deck. But that
So
means he
wait,
doesn't
I'm
have something like Lava Golem. Is that multiple copies of Book of Moon?
Yeah, my opponent's also a striker. What did he have? Evenly, you said? Okay.
Oh, this is huge. So, since normally you're saying, oh, you know what your teammates are playing. This is the
Okay,
downside of
control.
playing the exact same deck as one of your other
Okay,
teammates. Is
control.
every card that your teammate sees, he can reveal that the other player is playing in their deck also. Because you'd assume if they're both playing the same strategy, they probably agreed upon the cards in their main deck.
We saw a little bit of that yesterday, and I actually don't think they were playing the exact same deck list when they were sharing across the table. This case, Jose and Jose are actually playing the exact same Skystriker deck list,
Yeah,
so
Book of
they
Moon,
don't
Book of
necessarily know this, but it is valuable information that's being shared. Particularly a card like Evenly Matched. Obviously, you're now deeper into the first game, so you're not as worried about it, since there's a field spell on the field. But in general, knowing that the opponent's main deck and card like Evenly Matched could be of value. So I think with the Sky Striker deck is you really need to get value out of every single one of your spell activations.
All
Each
right.
individual card
Jiminy Cricket.
isn't overwhelmingly powerful. It's really the combination, so he has to sequence everything just so perfectly.
All right, so Hornet Drones is going to summon the token, and that's going to prompt Clifton to activate the effect of Mirror Jade. Doesn't want to allow Jose a chance to link the token off. The thing with Sky Strikers is if you can make sure they don't get to one Link Monster, you might be okay. Maybe the only way they can access the Link Monster is through this token. Now he's going to have something like Ray or Rose to still be able to access the Sky Striker extra deck.
And it's important to sequence it like this so that you do it while there are monsters in the main monster zone.
Rendbrum.
So he sends Rindbrum, the Striking Dragon, from the extra deck to the graveyard.
R-I-N-D-B. R-I-N-D-B. That should be enough.
Yeah, Rindbrum.
There, yep.
It's out of Photon Hypernova. It's actually one of my favorite cards, if not my favorite card in Photon Hypernova, because it makes Branded Fusion so much more useful. Since its materials, it's a Fallen Albaz plus the Beast. I think it's a Beast. I just know it's Tri-Brigade McCourier. I think it's a Tri-Beast.
It's actually just the Tri-Beast
Yeah,
option.
that's what I thought. So Beast, Beast Warrior, Winged Beast. I didn't want to say it all if I didn't have to, but let's go ahead and say it. But it's definitely an insane card because you get to send down Fallen Albaz McCourier, summon it. You can use a Beast Seal to banish the McCourier. Then the McCourier can add Blazing Cartasia. Then you spell summon your Blazing Cartasia. You can fuse the Cartasia with an Aluber or a Beast Seal to make the new Dusk Dragon and just go from there. And if you negate your own Mirror Jade with Rindbrum, you're able to use Mirror Jade's effect on the following turn, and if you have a Beast Seal on your side of the field, you want to bounce back to your hand, you're free to do that as well. There's definitely a lot of options. It also has the graveyard effect. I'm not certain if you can use it if it's not properly summoned, since it has the option to summon itself, but you could banish itself or Fallen Albaz to the graveyard to summon the other one to
got
the
game one.
field.
Looks like we're not even going to be able to find out because it looks like Jose is
David's
going
still in
to
game one.
concede this game.
Yeah, it looks like he didn't have that other Sky Striker monster or any way to get a Sky Striker Link monster on the field. And I mean, the Branded deck, when it goes first, uninterrupted, you don't have the Ash Blossom for the Branded Fusion. It's tough.
I mean, that's really the critical part of that game is Branded Fusion, no Ash Blossom, not maybe quite full combo, but a combo that was sufficient enough to deal with what Jose was able to put up there on that opening turn.
Yeah, so Mirror Jade's a heck of a card. Beast of Lubellion is really, really strong. And now you know that David also, I don't know if he's the one who won, but one of their other teammates won game number 1. So Team Midwest Gaming off to a good start here on the bubble. The bubble's probably, this round is probably where I've played the most nervous. More nervous than my Top Cut matches, I would think, because once I'm in Top Cut, I'm like, oh, I already did it. I made it. This was like my goal to get here first, and now I got to keep going. But this last round, it's like where it all comes down to. I'm exhausted. I've been playing for, a day and a half straight almost. I probably didn't get much sleep the night before because, I was up worrying about day number 2. And this round is the thing I think I've had the most nerves for in any tournament is the last round of Swiss before that Top Cutoff.
I actually feel a little bit of the opposite. I honestly feel the nerves are there at the beginning of the tournament because there's this degree of uncertainty of your deck choice and maybe your familiarity with the format.
There's a degree of uncertainty with your deck choice.
Okay, fair. But I feel like once you get to round 7, 8, 9, you really get to see the field. You get to understand sort of how other people are approaching that particular event.
Get a little more comfortable.
Yes, I actually particularly like these sort of final rounds, because I feel like at that point you've built the confidence that, okay, my deck is working well, I'm playing well this weekend, I've gotten to this part of the tournament. All I have to do is continue what I've been doing. Rounds 1 and 2 and 3, there's still that bit of the unknown. All of a sudden you play against a deck and you're like, wow, I didn't realize that deck was this good. I feel like I'm behind everybody else now that are utilizing these strategies.
I can't really see too much of what's going on in David's game, but I sure see a lot of his zones are X'd out there, so that's not good for David. Kastira Chengra Ira is definitely going to town there in game number 1. David, an awesome player from, I think, Houston, but he's definitely from Texas. Known him for quite some time. Excellent duelist, an Ultimate Duel Series champion, UDS winner.
Well, that's an incredible honor.
It certainly is. Not too many of those. Oh, Book of Eclipse. That means David's going to get his zone back, I think. Looks like all those monsters did flip face down from what I can see. Is that what's going on? Or he's conceding. Never mind. It looks like they're just picking up their cards. It doesn't look like he was able to get his zones back. The judge reaches over, takes those zones away. But we'll have to wait and see how the results were for that matchup as these players finish side decking. Now, going into game number 2, I don't know if, when I'm building my side deck going into this tournament, if Sky Striker would be high on my list of decks I need to prepare for. But I think there's a lot of cards that can cross over that you'd be using against other strategies that will still be effective against the Sky Striker strategy.
Yeah, I could imagine cards like Evenly Matched lining up fairly well against a strategy that's so reliant on spell and trap cards.
Yeah, and I mean, notoriously, Sky Striker is known to use a lot of those monster effects from hand usually, but we didn't see an Ash Blossom during that game 1, so maybe something like Triple Tactics Talents would be good. But I don't know. We'll have to see what Clifton decides to side in. On the other side, now Jose gets to go first with Sky Striker, so that's going to be a night and day difference. Both these decks are really good at going first, not as good as going second.
I think the Despia branded strategies are really good at going second when they see cards like Super Polymerization and Branded Red.
Super Polymerization is a key card they would need when they're going second for sure.
It can be a struggle, right? If you have to activate Brand Diffusion, your opponent has the ability to negate it with some of the variety of cards that we've seen in the format. It can be quite a struggle, but instead, if you have those hands with Super Polymerization in the versions that play the Frightful Patchwork combination with Polymerization and Gem Chains, sometimes going second is actually more ideal because cards like Guardian Chimera do such a good job into an established field. And especially with that non-targeting ability when Polymerization itself is in the graveyard.
Yeah, it's certainly huge. I'm a big fan of Guardian Chimera. But now it looks like our duelists have side decked and are ready to jump into it. It's game number 2 in our last round of Swiss here at the Team YCS in Las Vegas. I assume Jose will be going first. The handshake before game number 2. Oh, did he say you're going first to Clifton?
Looks like I've seen this before with Sky Striker decks.
Interesting. Let's see. Clifton taking a moment to consider his options, it looks like. Oh, wow. Pays off big for Jose. He flips the script on Clifton, says you're going to go first. And the one downside to the Brand Despia deck is sometimes you draw like Bestials, Noah Luber. Let's see, on my deck, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I play Foolish Burial, Gold Sarcophagus, just multiple ways to get to Tragedy because I want to make sure I get to a Luber every single time. And now you mentioned Reinforcements of the Army last game. Jose has it this game to add Sky Striker, Ace Rose to the or Ray to the hand.
Which is obviously a much better start than what we saw last game. There is an interesting dynamic here when you open up and just pass the first turn, where potentially Jose put cards like Lava Golem, Evenly Matched, and Lightning Storm into his deck. And if you pass back to the opponent that actually allowed you to go first, you can sometimes actually flip the script back to them. Because
You're right.
They then have the decision point of whether or not they want to commit to the field and sort of invalidate cards like Lightning Storm.
All right, so we see the normal summon Ray. Area 0 is activated to target Ray, and then Ray chains their effect to sends herself to the graveyard to special summon Hayate from the extra deck. And now the Area 0 resolves to add a Sky Striker card from the deck to the hand. It's kind of a cool way you get to make sure you get Area 0 without having to lose a card in the process. Now Hayate can attack directly, not by its own effect, just because there's no monsters on Clifton's side. And when it does damage, it's going to send a card, Sky Striker card from Jose's deck to the graveyard to be added back with Kagari at some point.
It's just the classic opening play from Sky Striker, Area 0 plus Ray.
And link into Hayate. It's all pretty standard here.
I mean, you're glad hitting any Sky Striker card, but honestly, Widow Anchor's probably at the top of the list.
Oh, is that the one he grabbed off of it?
I believe so.
Yeah, Widow Anchor's still a really powerful card, being able to negate a monster effect and take control if you have 3 or more spells.
I would consider probably prioritizing Shark Cannon to an extent because it lines up so well against cards like Branded in Red, which I think are some of the cards that would be able to potentially swing the game back in Clifton's favor. Of course, Engage leading up to that. But in terms of how you want to sort of establish your opening play, I think having Shark Cannon amongst other interruptions like Widow Anchor is probably a priority.
Certainly is. Now let's see if he goes into the Kagari. Here we go, Sky Striker Ace Kagari. And back Sky Striker mobilize engage. Now links away Kagari into Shizuku. Shizuku lets him add in the end phase a spell that is not in the graveyard, a Sky Striker spell. And now the script is flipping again now. So now, since, you know, Clifton originally sided, assuming he was going second, right? Had to pass that turn 1, but now he's going to be prepared to play like he's going second with an extra card.
Which could potentially be, from Clifton's perspective, exactly what he was intending. Either his hand just wasn't ideal for going first, and he needs to hopefully draw a better 6th card, or this was just part of his game plan in general. Sky Strikers do have ability to actually deal 8,000 damage, but it's not overwhelmingly likely. You need a very particular set of cards. So maybe he imagined, I'm going to get a turn no matter what. I might as well plan it out that way.
Could be the case.
Steam up his maybe. Okay.
Now let's see what he does with his 6 cards in hand. Going to start with Branded Lost. Not a bad one to start with. Branded Lost is really effective here, so if you fusion summon a monster like Lubellion, use the effect of fusion summon, they won't be able to change something like Widow Anchor to negate the Lubellion's effect.
Can you give me a translate, please?
This Branded Lost. Yep.
And Fallen to Albaz has usually it uses a fusion material, but has an effect if it's summoned, you can discard a card from your hand and fuse itself with an opponent's monster. So here he'd be able to use the Shizuku, which is an extra deck monster, to make Mirror Jade. Or I think Shizuku's dark, so he could also go into Lubellion, but Lubellion would go into Mirror Jade. So you might as well just skip that extra step most of the time.
I believe it's water.
Oh, is it water? I thought Shizuku might have been the dark one. I know they're all different attributes.
There was a time where people were actually playing White Howling, I believe it's called, that requires you to have a water monster where you would banish a spell from your opponent's graveyard and they'd be unable to activate spells for the turn. I believe Shizuku is a water.
Okay, well, it's still an extra deck monster, so you're going into Mirror Jade regardless. You wouldn't, even if it was a dark, you wouldn't do that regardless. And now the Branded Lost is going to activate to add.
I imagine Blazing Cartage is probably pretty favorable here. He does have the Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard. This is one of those circumstances where, unlike previous, you're actually going to have the Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard at the end of this resolution. Albion's the other major option, I think.
Yep, grabs the Blazing Cartagia.
Looks like a Starlight Rare as well.
Very nice. Beautiful Starlight Rare out of Darkwing Blast.
Have you seen a nib yet, Joe?
Has anyone seen a nib? Nib check on the team real quick.
Okay, cool.
I like that. That's so funny.
It's a good question. How did these players feel about Nibiru this weekend? Have they been dropping left and right, or have there not been any activations, which might mean that Jose and his teammates looked at the format and decided that Nibiru wasn't an important inclusion?
Definitely heads up. That's a quality question to ask your teammates in the Team YCS for sure. All right, so you can special summon the Blazing Cartagia since Fallen Albaz is in the graveyard.
Looks like he has the singleton copy of Called by the Grave in his hand, and a copy of Tri-Brigade Mercurier. And that looks like a branded opening.
All right, branded opening might be going after Ad Libitum here. He can special summon Ad Libitum, or he can just add it to his hand. But if he special summon Ad Libitum, he uses his effect to boost the attack of his monsters on the field.
He could also go for a Luber.
True. Oh, yeah, he hasn't used Branded Fusion yet even,
Exactly.
has he? I forgot. Yeah, I was assuming because the Mirror Jade is on the field, he already used Branded Fusion. Because normally, if you have Branded Fusion and Branded Opening, you always go for Ad Libitum. But yeah, definitely a Luber into the Branded Fusion will be pretty strong here. Potentially. Yeah, I mean, he does play 2 copies of Mercurier, so he could still go into something like Renbrum.
sort of depends on what his big picture goal here is, because he could have also went into Tragedy and then used Mirror Jade to banish it, and that would have searched Aliber. And if he plans on using the Mirror Jade, but then also bringing it back off ad libitum at any point in the turn, there's a universe where he could get a free additional send off of Mirror Jade, which is just in and of itself additional card advantage during the end phase.
Yeah, certainly. That's the cool thing about the branded deck. There's just so many different variations, different ways you can go about to get the same result, but each like decision is very important, because if you go the wrong direction, it could cost you the game.
That is the beauty of the branded strategies, is that there's not a single default play.
Yep, this is perfect. So he has the Blazing Cartasia on the field, which has the quick effect to Fusion Summon. So now the Widow Anchor is trying to negate the Aluber, Chainlink 2, Blazing Cartasia to Fusion Summon to fuse the Aluber off the field. Fantastic plays here from Clifton, just showing the power and versatility of Blazing Cartasia.
Yeah, prioritizing and getting it on the field before activating branded opening. It's a pretty simplistic sequencing, but a very pivotal sequencing, because it plays around the Widow Anchor that he knew that Jose added the previous turn.
Yep. And now we're going to see Grand Ganol, the Dust Dragon, come down. I'm assuming. Could make something else. It could make a Despia monster. Can't make that Albion. Needs Albaz for that one. All right, so it is going to be Grand Ganol, the Dust Dragon. So that Grand Ganol, brand new card out of Photon Hypernova. On summon, lets you send a level 6 or higher lighter dark monster from your extra deck or deck to the graveyard. And then during the opponent's turn, if they activate an effect that would special summon a monster, you can banish it to summon a Despia monster from your extra deck or a Dogmatica monster from your main deck.
And he also gets to resolve the Aliber, because it's no longer on the field when Widow Anchor attempted to resolve, which means he gets to add branded fusion safely to his hand.
That should be enough. Sorry? Yeah.
Yep, so Grand Ganol's going to use effect to send maybe Albion. Yep. So now Albion will be able to use the effect in the end phase. And now, since a fusion monster was sent to the graveyard, that means he's going to be able to add that Blazing Cartasia back to his hand during the end phase. Now Branded Fusion coming down. I assume he's going to send down a Mercurier. Oh, no, Lubellion. He doesn't have access to Lubellion yet, so he's going to go for just another Albion.
2 Zeke.
Found out there's 2 Zeeks in their extra deck, but I mean, that makes sense thinking about Kashtira, that you're going to want to have another copy.
You could actually rely on your Kashtira teammate to reveal the entire extra deck if they happen to be lined up against the Sky Striker opponent, just so you know everything.
Oh, man. That's crazy. So it looks like he is going to summon the Albion. Now Albion's going to use the effect on summon. He can banish monsters to fusion summon from his field or graveyard or hand. But if he banishes Mercurier, when it's banished, lets you add a monster that mentions Fallen to Albaz. That looks like a Starlight Rare Grand Ganol, if I believe so. One of the beautiful Starlight Rares out of Photon Hypernova.
The Mirror Jade, unfortunately, does not look Starlight Rare, but that is another.
That's a tough one to get.
That's another amazing Starlight Rare from Photon Hypernova.
Yeah, I've been trying to pull one for quite some time now. Still no luck.
Hopefully I can get my hands on one too, or two, because you probably need to play.
I want to get 3. I still need play sets of everything. It's hard for me not just to want to play set of any card that I like.
I'm going to trigger Mercurier, but yeah.
So Renbrum has the cool effect if a monster. It's pretty much if a monster. Well, it's if a fusion exceeds Link, a monster that is technically from the extra deck activates this effect, but it could be still summoned back from the graveyard or something like that. But if they activate the effect, you can negate the effect and return a monster on the field to the owner's hand.
Which synergizes
we're looking up Renbrum yet again on Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron. The judge still is having trouble spelling Renbrum. It's a new card.
It synergizes really well with the Bystials as well, because you can bounce your own.
Like I said, these 2 fusions are 2 of my favorite cards out of Photon Hypernova, just because of how impactful they are for the branded deck.
It's somewhat counterintuitive, because the first time you read Renbrum, you might imagine that the negation and the return are related to the same card. I mean, granted, probably that wouldn't work, because it would create an interesting game state. But the fact that you can negate but then also bounce means, in some cases, it's actually multiple points of interruption if you're bouncing your own Bystials.
What's he asking? To leave your phone there? Oh, okay. Oh, anything?
Looks like he's considering sending down Retribution.
2. I want game 1. Yeah.
Ooh, that's another very important thing. Notice,
I think go second kill him.
Clifton was just asked whether or not he was forced to start this game. If Jose and the other Jose on the team that are playing Sky Striker have already determined that they want to go second in games 2 and 3, that's additional free information that can cause his teammates to decide differently, planning to go second instead of going first. So just another good use of having the fact that you have teammates who are playing against, in this case, the exact same Sky Striker strategy. We see here a copy of Book of Moon activated.
Let's see what he targeted.
Look like the Ram Rum.
25.
I think this might be,
Can we?
is that Linkage? I believe that's a copy of Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage.
It is, in fact, Linkage. It lets you special summon another monster from the extra deck. So he's going to send Area 0 to special summon. Looks like Kaina. So one of these monsters is not going to be able to attack.
2. Target the Jade.
Targets Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade can attack. And now the Area 0 is going to summon Ray.
Yeah, why not? The one that fuses that can't attack is Lubellion.
Yeah, Albion can attack even when it uses
Lubellion
effect.
can't attack.
Lubellion can attack if it uses its effect. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some plays,
It's German.
I guess it's still plausible now, where you would go Branded in red and bring out Lubellion, or bring out Albion to go into Lubellion, or vice versa, to try and actually sort of navigate around the Branded
like
in
game
red
one's
/ Lubellion restrictions.
Did I use Mirror Jade yet?
You say okay. Yes, I was resolving.
No, wait.
Yes.
He said 1, 2.
Yeah.
He was okay. I was resolving. Then he said
No.
yes. Okay.
Como yo, es que cuando declaraste,
Sí.
él dijo que...
No, el primero él me dijo, ok, yo iba a buscar el mazo y él le dijo, no puede atacar. Pero ya estaba resolviendo.
Es que yo no miré que... Cuando yo miré...
Sí, por
es
eso.
que yo miré, vaya que más diciendo. Cuando yo miré...
Yeah, so Jose, maybe a little bit of language barrier. It doesn't seem like he speaks too much English, so definitely might have a little miscommunication on if the chain was ready to resolve or if Clifton wanted to respond to that chain link too.
I believe it's Kaina and then Area 0 that are trying to
Yo estaba
resolve.
tomando el deck ya.
Yeah,
He
but
said
I think
1,
Clifton
2,
wanted to
and
chain
you
to
said
the
Albion can
chain link 2
attack.
to use
Albion
Mirror
is
Jade's
flat.
effect. That's what they're
Yeah,
discussing right
so-
now. Yeah, because he was about to resolve the chain, and so they asked that
Okay,
question
so
about the
3 0,
Albion.
1, this is 2.
Yeah,
3.
now Clifton has his opportunity to be chain link 3 Mirror Jade.
So 1, 2.
Entonces, ahorita estamos declarando 1 y 2.
Pero es que ya lo había declarado, por eso. Y él se metió y no tenía por qué meterse.
Porque estaba diciendo había un problema.
Pero no era problema, se equivocó. Entonces ahora me está haciendo revolver la jugada cuando no tenía que devolverla.
Yeah, I know that, but I just more to clarify. I have been saying that you can't see different graphics. That's what he's saying.
Yes. I was resolving my car. Why
Yes, he's looking like it's flipping to the fault.
Sí.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he'd already picked his deck up to resolve his chain links, but sometimes there's a little bit of communication errors. But they're going to take a moment to pause. Maybe we could hop into one of the other games that is going on while we're doing this.
Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, we'll have to let the
Well,
ju-
they might be able to figure it out right now if we just wait just a moment.
Correct.
So yeah, they're resolving it right now.
Entonces cuando usted declaró 1-2, interrumpió porque pensó que no podía sacar esto. Esto no podía,
Yeah.
no podía
Yeah, because the Albion question did come up when they were doing this challenge. Out of nowhere, they were just like, Albion cannot attack, but it absolutely could. So that's where all this confusion comes from. Because someone thought did something they couldn't do, but they absolutely could do it. Yeah, and the language barrier definitely not helping in this situation.
I just think it goes down to the Albion question in the midst of the resolution of the previous chain,
Yes.
which I think is a relatively easy fix in the grand scheme of things.
I literally got interrupted. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think he got interrupted. I felt like the Albion question came out of nowhere in the middle before Clifton got a chance to
Can we get an appeal
respond.
to progress this, or what do we do? I don't want to, but because you're saying I can chain, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I don't know why we're not moving on. The judges made his ruling.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So yeah, he wants to know that because he's saying they shouldn't be saying yes.
Yeah, si yo estaba tomando, yo tenía mi deck en la mano y tú dijiste eso.
That's when he interrupted. He was picking up the
I mean, it doesn't matter if you pick your deck up if your opponent didn't say that he was not chaining. If he doesn't say okay, it doesn't matter how quick you resolve your effects. Like, you got to give your opponent an appropriate amount of time to respond. But definitely the Albion question just coming out of nowhere really threw things off. I mean, this is kind of the problem when you don't know what your opponent's cards do going to a tournament. Anytime you're preparing for a big YCS and you're going to a competitive event like this, it's really, really, really important to know what the cards do that other players are going to be playing against, especially when it's going to be a heavily represented deck like Branded. That really comes on you that you don't know what the Branded cards do, like at this point. Because Albion has been out for over a year and a half. Like, it's been quite some time. It's been in a structured deck. It's been in the Megatons from not this past one, but the year before that one. So yeah, Albion's probably been out for a couple of years at this point, but that knowing what your opponent's cards do so you don't have these miscommunications can really help you have a more smooth tournament experience where you don't run into situations where you're having to read every single card that your opponent uses in a deck that's very popular strategy, going, if not the second most popular strategy probably in the room.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the question actually originated from Jose or if it originated from the judge.
Or his teammate.
Or his teammate, yeah. Somewhere the Albion question came up, and then obviously we see what happens.
We'll have to see, but it's been a good game so far.
It's been interesting to see Sky Strikers, that's for sure.
Yeah, we've got to see too much of the Sky Striker action, but yeah, the beginning of this game was really interesting, like pass. Like, we get to see the script got flipped a couple different directions, so.
I also really appreciate the fact that Clifton and his team in general were aware enough to ask, what did the Sky Striker player do heading into game 2 after losing game 1? Learning that insight in terms of planning to go first or second is a huge deal. And that's just another layer of mind games where if you hear the other team acknowledge that you plan on going second, or at least one of your teammates did, do you now flip the switch and decide to go first in anticipation of them thinking that you're going second? It adds this additional layer on top of everything.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny. But we could, it looks like, oh no, they're talking still, but yeah, the game count is Clifton up game 1. We are in game number 2. There really isn't a clear decided winner of this matchup yet. I don't really know how it's going to be. We can see the other matches going on alongside him. It looks like David's sitting back with his arms folded, so his opponent's probably on the play there. Can't really tell what's going on in Joe's side. It looks like there's a lot of cards on the field from what I can tell, though.
I think Joe's actually playing Sword Soul, a deck that we haven't seen this weekend.
Oh, that would be a cool matchup to watch at some point. Sword Soul's definitely been around. I'm surprised at the resurgence. I've even seen some people using Runic Sword Soul, which seems kind of interesting. But, oh, are we back? Looks like they might have resolved it. Or they're still thinking about it? No, it looks like we're still paused. And now we're back. Yeah, let's go. And it looks like Clifton does get an opportunity to respond to his opponent's activating effects, as it should be per Yu-Gi-Oh! Going to send down Brigand. And Brigand at the end phase lets you add a Tri-Brigade, so you get Tri-Brigade McCourier from your deck to your hand with Brigand. Or Fallen Albaz.
We are seeing sort of the full suite of Despia branded fusion monsters.
That'll go.
He put his banished monsters on top of Clifton's banished zone. That was the banished pile. That's pretty funny.
It'll be interesting to see whether or not he chooses to actually special summon during the end phase. I don't know if he has any Fallen of Albaz's left in his deck, but that is another option for Glory Dragon.
Oh yeah, you can. That's all of them let you have that option for Albaz as the backup plan when the other one is relying. And I think he's already used 2 McCouriers in this game, I believe. So maybe not even has that to add. I know there's one banished. I don't know if there's one in his graveyard. All right, so Albion going to attack Ray.
This is going to be a huge call by the Grave.
Oh, I didn't even know. That is huge.
Rick.
Clifton actually made the decision on the opening turn to pass without setting, called by the Grave, which I think makes a lot of sense. You could theoretically try to target Ray in that combination when they actually use Ray's effect to go into the extra deck with Area Zero, which is actually how Jose's first turn played out. But in general, holding it here to target Ray at just the perfect time can really stymie Jose's plans, because sometimes bringing back Ray in the battle phase can really allow Jose to survive a battle phase, but if you have Call by the Grave, that might not necessarily be the case.
Certainly. All right. And now the Grand Guignol is going to attack directly.
Grand Guignol, 25.
No, Grand Guignol does 25. 2,500 attack, 2,500 defense.
Exit battle.
End of battle phase.
Oh no, he has evenly matched. End of battle phase, evenly matched. This is huge to turn the tables. How the tables have turned.
Clifton's in an interesting position here in terms of what he wants to banish. It also matters a lot what he gets to get naturally during the end phase to kind of regroup.
He has an Albion he's already sent, I think, this turn.
And then Glory Dragon.
Maybe he just keeps Albion. So he's going to keep the Albion so he can at least get the Beast of Lubellion to the field and grab Branded Beast.
Yep, that's an additional point of interaction on the following turn. I think that's what he's valuing, because he already has the Albion in the graveyard that will give him potentially something like Branded in red. This will also give him that additional point of interaction. At this point, it's just accumulating as many points of interaction on the following turn as possible.
Yeah, Branded Beast is a really cool one. It's a continuous trap that during the end phase, you can activate a continuous Branded Speller Trap from your graveyard, so he'll be able to react. Oh no, the Branded lost his banished face down, so that's not coming back. But if it was in the graveyard, he'd be able to activate it again. But if he controls a Bestial, he can tribute a dragon on his side of the field to destroy a card on the opponent's side of the field.
And Lubellion, as a dragon, gives you that automatic target.
Yeah, really it works out that all the Bestials are dragons.
So here's the first end phase effect, bringing back Blazing King.
Yep. Blazing Cartasia.
That's really the beauty of Branded, just the ability to rely so much on the end phase and say, okay, evenly matched, great card. You made me banish 3 or 4 cards, but during the end phase, I've got 2, 3, sometimes even 4 effects. They could just refuel my hand, and in some cases, put them directly onto the field.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like to use Iron Dash, the Spriggan Dragon, because you can summon Spriggan's Kit during your end phase, get Branded Red, and just have your whole turn during the end phase. The complete combo, everything you do happens during the end phase. Big fan of that combination, but haven't really seen that here this weekend too much.
Brigand. B-R-I-G.
Gotta look up Brigand. Very simple effect.
That is one of the Fallen of Albaz fusion monsters that you don't see as frequently. Usually it is a singleton under some very niche situations. This is certainly one of those situations. It's sort of what happens when the game goes, let's say, 2, 3, or 4 turns, where you use Albion, which is the primary one that you send off of Mirror Jade, but at this point of the game, you do want to have some of those additional Fallen of Albaz targets that do give you at least some type of incremental advantage, even if you're only searching. You know, Fallen of Albaz and Mercurier can be great searches under certain conditions. So here, the fact that he's playing multiple copies of Mercurier, we see one in Vanished. Yeah, this definitely pays off. The card combines really well with Allure of Darkness. I'm curious of whether or not Clifton has an Allure of Darkness package in his deck, which is why he's bumping up a card like Mercurier.
Certainly. I love Allure of Mercurier. Allure, Despian Tragedy, definitely fantastic options to banish since you get those bonus effects when they're banished. Going to grab Branded Banishment. This is a cool one. So this trap lets you special summon a Despia monster or a level 8 or higher fusion monster from your graveyard, and then you can fuse with monsters anywhere on the field, including your opponent's side, and banish those monsters.
And you don't even have to use the monster that you special summon. So in some cases, you can get even additional card advantage by utilizing the entirety of your opponent's field, but also having a monster left over.
Yeah, like grabbing something like a Luber, but you don't. If you grab a Luber and you fuse with it, you won't get that effect. You'll miss the timing to be able to trigger the effect on field. But if you special summon the Luber, as you mentioned, and use your opponent's monsters, the pluses continue.
Or Tragedy, which would sort of circumvent that issue of having to use your own monsters.
We're always trying to fuse with our opponent's monsters.
This is true.
Brand Banishment in the mirror match is quite crazy.
Oh, that's probably one of the reasons why Clifton decided to incorporate it into his main deck. Just the fact that he's playing so many planning for the potential, at least, of so many mirror matches.
Yeah, removing 2 of your opponent's monsters to make a Dragos Tapelia. Chef's kiss. And now Sky Striker Mobilize Engage is going to be activated to add Afterburners to Jose's hand. Takes a moment to shuffle his deck thoroughly.
The free draw off of Engage.
Next up is going to be Afterburners going after the Lubellion. He's trying to play around this branded beast.
Do you think there's a universe where this prompts banishment?
Four.
And then he fuses with the
I mean-
Lubellion so that he doesn't get the branded beast destroyed?
I think it has to prompt the banishment so he doesn't lose it to the second half of the Afterburners.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
this
it-
works too.
so it's not. Yeah, he still doesn't destroy the monster. Doesn't get the second half.
So he's valuing the banishment face down as an interruption as opposed to the beast effect later in the turn.
Yeah, he could bring back Albion maybe. I don't. I think the Mirror Jade got banished face down.
Battle phase. End of battle phase.
He's just gonna evenly match for 1. No, just went main phase 2. Just tried to scare him a little bit. Interesting play. Doesn't have any other monsters, so just gonna set a couple cards to his back row.
6 minutes. And I'm at 65 and he's at 3,000.
Only 3,000 life points left for Jose. Time winding down. Things are not looking good. And Joseph did win on table C, so that means if Clifton can find the win here, Midwest Gaming will be moving on with 2 losses and 7 wins and an opportunity to make that top 16 cutoff.
Clifton's deciding here if he wants to use banishment without having to worry about the back row. And it looks like he is actually going to go in his draw phase, leaving the banishment as likely one of the cards that he utilizes on this turn.
If he still has that Fallen Albaz in the graveyard, he can special summon Blazing Cartasia again.
Oh, is that a copy of Allure Darkness? We commented on that card earlier.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite cards in the branded strategy.
It helps because a lot of the times the struggle in the branded strategy, you don't open up with all the cards you need, but Allure lets you dig and sculpt your hand. For sure, a good card to have.
He drew both another copy of Allure Darkness, and it actually looked like branded Expulsion, a card that we see typically in the side deck. Obviously, this is game 2, so it probably has come into the main deck. But that's a card that has some really interesting applications in the branded strategy.
Interesting is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Letting you special summon monsters your opponent's side of the field, pretty strong sometimes.
Yeah, or whatever. I dump
very
with,
generous.
The little dragon.
So
I
kind.
dump like Brandon Red at a deck. And I have a set banishment.
Some might call it a nightmare or a gimmick.
You guys only know yet.
It's definitely a gimmick. And now
Yeah, he's got
the
it.
players are
He's got a-
discussing the best play from here, how to proceed forward.
Queda poco tiempo y están.
Sorry? Oh, okay.
So he gets to search Albion off of the copy of Mercuria that he starts the previous turn, and now he gets to use that
I think
Albion
it's red.
to send. He's talking about branded in
Or
red.
maybe it's Brandon in white because I have that Albaz in my grave I confuse with. None.
So they're actually asking about Sharkane, a card that I said earlier would probably be a priority for Jose to find just because it does so well against cards like
I don't
branded
know. I
in red.
kind of want to do that so he can get that and then I can just kill him with banishment.
Ha visto su mano más de 5
I think that's the move. I think white's the move.
All right, so he sends Brandon and White with Albion to the graveyard. Now he's going to go Albion to the bottom and draw a card from the top.
And I was going to go. I believe he has a copy of Retribution in the graveyard that he sent the previous turn.
He does.
So now this is sort of where we see that synergy where being able to just send a card like Branded in white to the graveyard or Branded in red to the graveyard, when you combine it with Retribution, it allows you to get that single card to fusion summon.
This feels so nice.
I think that's the first Magnamut that I've seen all weekend.
It's a good card,
He's one in grave.
especially with Rinbrum being able to bounce it back to your hand during the end phase when you negate your own Mirror Jade. Whew. You get 2 Bestials ready to go. So Retribution's going to be banished, as you mentioned, to add back that Branded and White.
Huh? My one Albus in grave, one's banished.
¿Cuánto tiempo? ¿Cuánto tiempo queda?
Victor special.
Okay. ¿Cuánto tiempo queda?
This is another important sequencing. If he is going to use the Branded in white, he needs to make sure that he has a Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard. If he wants to fuse with the Fallen of Albaz, if he were to remove the Fallen of Albaz and he only had 1 cop, he wouldn't be able to special summon the Blazing Cartasia. I'm not sure exactly how many Fallen of Albazes he has currently in the graveyard, but it is important sequencing nevertheless.
All right, now Magnum on summon will trigger, so he'll be able to add a dragon during his end phase to his hand.
I would do the Albion that wasn't properly summoned.
Confuse. We're going to banish Albion and Albaz to summon Lubellion. A Dark plus Albaz, and now Lubellion effect can discard a card from the hand to go into Mirror Jade.
Looks like he discards a copy of Allure of Darkness.
That's not going to do anything. Yep, Chain Branded Beast. Since he has the Bestial Magnumite, and now he's going to Chain Widowmaker on the Blazing Cartasia, which will prompt a chain from Clifton on the Blazing Cartasia. Yeah, you usually want to save the Widow Anchor for the activation of the Blazing Cartasia. That was a random Widow Anchor.
Well, it just got targeted up Beast.
Oh, he targeted the Widow Anchor. Oh, okay, that's what I missed. Okay, I was wondering why he flipped up the Widow Anchor. That makes sense.
Yeah, he went activate Infinite Impermanence.
Yeah.
Clifton went activate Beast, send the Lubellion to the graveyard, targeting closest to deck, which in this case was a copy of Widow Anchor, and that's why he activated it there.
Yeah, I missed that. I got it all the way up to the targeting of the card in the back row.
Is there a universe where maybe you actually target Magnuma with the intention of taking it?
I do not think so.
That way you sort of force Clifton to fuse with the Magnuma and the Blazing Cartasia? Oh no, he actually is allowing him to take it. Okay.
Yeah, now he has a monster in his main monster zone, so if he has another Sky Striker spell set, he won't be able to use it. Heads up play there from Clifton, letting him take it.
Yeah, there was definitely a few decision points there.
So now Mirror Jade coming down.
¿Vas a dar la extensión de tiempo?
Es un error que hizo él.
Por eso. O sea, y se tomó tiempo en eso. Se tomó.
Jose seems to know what all the branded cards do now, so that's fantastic. No more questions.
That's where he gets the money. Parece que era el warning.
Sí, no, pero todo lo que estaba haciendo, o sea, cuando
I think they're discussing whether or not there should be a time extension, seeing as how there's only about 5 seconds left in the round officially.
Yeah, funny thing is the judges are the ones who give the time extensions and can't be requested from the players. No matter what your argument is, you can never request for more time in the round. That is something that is assessed by the judges, usually for slow play penalties. They'll add 3 minutes to the turn. It's not something you can request from a judge. So do not do that. If you are playing in a tournament, do not ask a judge for more time.
I will say there was a pretty lengthy ruling question in this
and I'm sure the judges assessed the clock and gave them the extra time they needed.
He's at 3,000. Yeah.
¿Qué hacemos? ¿Qué hago? ¿No? ¿Ya se no? ¿Ya fue?
And it's also, yeah, I mean, if you're reading every one of your opponent's cards and you're the one asking for the time extension, I don't think that's something you're going to get here. You're kind of a product of your own demise. There's no way they're actually entertaining this, right? I don't understand what's happening. Like, pause the game. He requested some extra time. I'm not following here. Sorry, guys.
I actually feel like if this game made it to the battle phase, this would be over.
That's the other thing. Like, the game is over no matter what. It doesn't matter if time is called. It doesn't matter if they go to the battle phase. Jose's not coming out of this game the winner. So this is
Clifton has done all
it's
of
desperate.
this. Clifton has been able to do all of this with Branded Banishment set.
Like, yeah, he still has a Brandishment that can summon anything from his graveyard. Like, not only does he have enough damage to win the game this turn, he's ahead in life. They're only in time because, I mean, Jose read every single card that Clifton played in the first game.
I think he has a Serenair in hand too.
That he can summon since he took his Blazing Cartasia.
¿Qué quieres que haga? No te voy a decir nada. O sea, no voy a decir nada.
Bizarre situation. Can we please finish this game? Let's go. We're eager to finish this round. I think everyone wants to see this game end so bad. I want to get to that top 16. I want to see which teams are making it. And it looks like, yeah, time is called. It is over. And I think Team Midwest Gaming is going to walk away. the winner.
They
Don't
do
make
it-
sure to grab that Starlight Blazing Cartasia. Don't leave it on your opponent's side of the field. So congrats to Clifton Land. Hopefully, with an X2 record, you know, they're in prime position to make top 16, but I think there are some teams out there that won't make it, even with only 2 losses.
And that was an incredibly exciting match, seeing Sky Striker here. It was definitely a little bit of a surprise, I think, but definitely something that was interesting to see. I was really glad to see some of the cards from Clifton's deck, like Branded and White, really pay off for him.
Yeah, no, definitely. You were mentioning earlier, like what you need is just that branded deck, someone to discover that list that works really, really well. And this might be one of those lists to Branded Duel should look at and maybe take some pointers from moving on here throughout the format. But yeah, big congratulations to Midwest Gaming, walking away with the victory here in the bubble. It was or on the bubble, as it were. Definitely a good game, back and forth, and. Yeah, Clifton showing he knew what he had, what it takes to beat the Sky Striker strategy. I mean, the other team had 2, not just 1 Sky Striker player, they had 2 Sky Striker players. So, they really thought this strategy was something this weekend. Maybe it's just like it seemed like they weren't familiar with Branded very much. So maybe all they really knew is their Sky Striker deck. And so they're just like, this is what we know. We're going to take it to the tournament and see how well we can do.
And they made it all the way to the bubble, so they definitely were able to put up some significant results this weekend.
That's right. But we'll be right back with an interview with our winners from